Okay, good evening, everybody. You're all very, very welcome to our session this afternoon. So we're just waiting for people to be able to log on. So we're just going to give it a couple of more seconds, please. We have a lot of interest in our session, so we're delighted to have all of you to join us for the session this evening. Okay, so thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for this exciting launch of our School Avoidance Toolkit for post-primary schools. This is something that the Clare branch of CIPSI have been working on for quite some time, and it's a phenomenal achievement to have brought the project to fruition and to bring it to the official launch today. So before we go any further, I want to invite the different people that you can see on the screen in front of you to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start, Richard from NEPS. Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself briefly, please.
Some of you probably know me, but I'm Richard Egan. I'm a senior educational psychologist in Clare with the NEPS team. And I work with some of the schools in Clare along with a team of 5 other psychologists.
Thanks, Richard. Susan, you're very welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susan Quinn and I'm assistant psychologist in the Clare Primary Care Psychology Service. But I just recently changed careers and I have 10 years experience teaching myself. So that's why I was interested in the project.
Thanks, Susan. Catherine, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Catherine O'Donnell and I'm the coordinator of Innis Schools Completion Programme, and we work in 2 post-primary and 4 primary schools across Innis and Innistimon. And we work with young people from the age of 4 to 18.
Thanks, Catherine. Jill?
Hi there, I'm Jill Moses. I'm a social worker with the Family Support Service in Clare Care, and my role has been supporting parents since 2003. So I believe that at this stage, I have a small bit to say on the subject of supporting parents, and I'm going to share my wisdom later in the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jill. And finally, to complete the introductions, I'm going to introduce you to Sinead. And the format for our launch is that Sinead is going to begin a presentation for us, and then each of our speakers will come in. And finally, Richard is going to do a keynote input. He'll be delighted to hear her call that. Sinead, I'm delighted you could join us. So we'll invite you to introduce yourself and to introduce the launch of the School Avoidance Toolkit.
Thank you, Ray, and apologies for my lateness there, just having a bit of technical issues on my end, so I'm hoping that it'll hold up a bit of internet issues. But yeah, as Ray said, thank you everybody for logging in and welcome to the launch of the School Avoidance Toolkit. My name is Sinead Colopy and I'm the Clare CIPSI coordinator. And today is just, I suppose, a culmination of 18 months of hard work by a range of different agencies across County Clare. And first, I would just like to acknowledge really the people that gave us some financial support and backing to get this project up and running. Obviously, Tusla Child and Family Agency, the National Coordinator for CIPSI, Colman Niclua, the National Office, assisted in some financial support for this project, as well as the Department of Children, the Clare Local Development Company, and of course the Innis Schools Completion Programme that acted as the administrator on behalf of this fund. So without all those agencies and all that support, we wouldn't have gotten here today. The people on the panel are just a small subsection of a much bigger group of people that helped write this toolkit, from NEPS to CAMS to HSE to guidance counsellors, who all came together to write this toolkit under the CIPSI banner. And really that is what CIPSI is all about. It is interagency working to improve the lives of children, young people and families. And the fact that we had so many different agencies lend their expertise to this project to bring this project to fruition really is testimony to what the CIPSI is really about. So just to give a very, very quick overview as to what CIPSIs are, in case anybody with us today doesn't know us. We're responsible for improving the lives of children, young people and families throughout County Clare. Our remit is 0 to 24 years of age. We bring together a diverse group of public and non-for-profit organisations in the county, and we engage in joint planning and coordination of service for children and young people. So we are an interagency collective steered by Tusla Child and Family Agency. And the Clare CIPSI was established in the last number of years, but CIPSIs around the country have been in place since 2007. And we're aligned to the National Better Outcomes, Brighter Futures for Children, which feeds through to the Department of Children's Office. So we have our CIPSI steering committee, which is made up of senior management from around the county. And then we have a number of subgroups. So our subgroup that was responsible for what we're here for today was our subgroup, which is entitled Outcome 2, Achieving Full Potential in Learning and Development. And sitting on that subgroup, we have representation from the earlier sector, from primary schools, from post-primary, from third level, across the gamut really. And the aim of that subgroup is to do practical actions to achieve full potential in learning and development for children and young people 0 to 24. And one of the projects that subgroup decided that was in real need for County Clare was a school avoidance, a practical-based school avoidance toolkit. And we're very aware that there are toolkits out there done by my other CIPSI colleagues from around the country. However, we wanted this one to be different, and we wanted to add in a component where parent and family was involved, because as we know, young people don't live in isolation. They come from communities, they come from families. So when it comes to school avoiding behaviour, we needed to look at the full remit of that child's life. And that's why we decided that this toolkit was going to add and build on what's already been developed to date. So our education-based themes under the Clare CIPSI, you can see them there. We focus very much on play. We are looking at trauma-informed, trauma-responsive learning environments. We're trying to work on building practices between schools and statutory mental health services. Supporting young people to stay in education is a very important theme within the CIPSI, and one that we're working on very hard behind the scenes. Supporting educational transitions and early years pre-literacy and numeracy nurtured in the home. Our subgroup members, you can see down there, we have a big collective from across the gamut, from CAMS, from HSE, from NEPs, from schools, from the Education Centre, and from Family Resource Centres. So who is this resource for? This resource, as you can see on the slide in front of you, is not just for schools. We recognise that young people come into touch with people outside the schools. So that could be youth workers, family support workers, Garda youth diversion workers, and they may be avoiding school. So we felt that we needed a resource that can be worked on in school setting and out of school setting, and also with parents in a school setting and out of a school setting. The toolkit basically has 6 different components. So it's 6 different parts that you will work through from part 1 to part 6. And our other speakers today are going to go through each of the sections and just give you a flavour. The resource is very big. It's about a 200-page resource. We will have hard copies for all our practitioners, for all our schools in Clare, and all our frontline practitioners will be getting a hard copy, which will be spiral bound, so you can flick through and you can photocopy it, or you will get a PDF as well, which you can print. But all you're getting today is a whistle-stop tour of what each of the sections are about and how each of the sections really feed into the next. So what can the school do? Section 1 of the toolkit really is for specific roles within the school, the role of the curriculum, external supports for school. So this section, if you are in a school, you may already know an awful lot of this. If you're a year head, or if you're in a schools completion program, or you're a principal, you might say, this is my bread and butter, I get this. However, if you are a young social worker, and I would have engaged with a lot of social workers within TUSLA, where they have a child referred to them from child protection, the first thing they say to me is, what is the school doing when the child is avoiding going to school? So for those people outside of the education setting, section 1 is key, because they're not familiar with the educational background, and they don't know that there is a huge amount of structures already in place that schools are actively doing on a daily basis. So it's really to sort of educate and bring up to speed our professionals outside of the education sector, and that's what section 1 really goes through. We have a big section in the appendices, which are really practical resources that schools can use. We also have a section for Clare specific resources, contact numbers, emails, helplines, because we recognise that a lot of the issues are not what a school is supposed to be dealing with, even though they are dealing with them on a daily basis. So you may need additional support from a Jigsaw, which is based in Limerick, or there's the Heads Up Clare website that you can refer a child to. There's the Immigrant Support Centre in Clare. There's family resource centres all over the county. So all those helplines and help numbers there are really, really useful for schools that they can use. There's also sample things like a sample return to school plan that people can download and use, as well as some other really practical resources that are there in the appendices when you get to the end of the document. Section 2, I suppose we really found is the core of our toolkit. Anxiety is at the core of all school avoiding behaviour. So we felt that this section was really the fundamental key that people need to start looking at first before you proceed on to other sections. So what I'd really like to do now is to hand over to Susan Quain from our clinical psychology department within the HSE. Susan was one of our front runners in writing this section, so she knows most about it. So Susan is going to talk through what section 2, just to give you a flavour of what section 2 contains. And then we will move on then with Catherine and with Jill, who will go through the next sections for you.
Hi, thanks, Sinead. Thanks for that. Yeah, so as Sinead said, section 2 is kind of the core. As we go through it, you'll see that there's a lot more detail in later sections, but really before you kind of try to address school avoidant behaviour, it's important to understand the anxiety that is under that, and you know that school avoidant behaviour is really based upon anxiety. So we felt it was good to include a section that gave a good bit of information and increases understandings really. So how anxiety can present in school. There's a good list of a lot of different ways, because for every child anxiety presents differently. So there's a good kind of a range of different ways that children can present, and we go into that a good bit in that section. And then we also provide advice to you on how you can assist a young person who's experiencing anxiety in this way. What's nice about the toolkit, as you see when we just demonstrated with some worksheets later, is there's some really clear guidance there on exactly what to say, how to say it, how to approach it. And also to kind of look at who's the most appropriate person really to be having these conversations with children, and looking at who has that relationship, and maybe even doing a little bit of relationship building before you approach that work. Yeah, as I suppose a lot of us will know from experiences of working with children like this, children who are anxious often also have anxious family members or parents, and that can be a struggle, you know, as well. So there's a little piece here in this as well, on how to approach anxiety with parents, and maybe how to open up a conversation on how school avoidance is also impacting them, and how their responses may impact their children. And again, really good, you know, straightforward, clear guidance, what to say, how to say it, and really practical, usable resources there. And a lot of the resources are exploratory, like most of the worksheets that I put into this section are very exploratory. This one now is this one that comes up here is quite like specific. There's also a lovely version of this in the section as well for children with learning difficulties or ASD. So there's a couple of variations on this, but it's just looking at trying to explore with the children, like what are their difficulties. This one is quite clear cut, so it's very good for children with learning disability difficulties, but there are more exploratory ones where they can, you know, really have a good chat with you about what's going on in school. It's very hard to address a problem if you don't know what it is. So those worksheets kind of try to break that down a little bit. And if you want to go on to the next one there, Sinead. Yeah, so you'll see that one actually kind of really identifies what are the key issues, so that maybe the schools or whoever's working with the children can maybe identify exactly what are the issues and then work about fixing them. And you'll see worksheet 4 there as well. Sometimes kids really, they're not aware that they have anxiety or how to describe it or what it is. So some of the worksheets really go into that, like how is your anxiety for you? How do you experience anxiety? And you go ahead there, Sinead, again. Yeah, and again, that's just say a more specific one to just demonstrate that we do have sheets there for children with a variety of different presentations. So, you know, to explore what it is that's actually preventing them from attending school. Okay, Sinead, and the next one again. And then there's a lot of these little worksheets throughout the pack that are really nice, and it's going to depend, and you're going to have to use your professional judgment there on what sheets are appropriate for the kids, but like not, you know, things outside of my control, things inside of my control, and just letting them explore how they can problem solve the situation for themselves sometimes, but also with support. So these worksheets are all designed to be done with the professional or taken away by the child, brought back and discussed later. Okay, yeah, so that's section 2. So I'll pass you on to Catherine now. Yeah, that's just another sheet there. Oh yeah, sorry. So that'll just demonstrate there the very clear sentences that you can use. Okay, so that's my piece.
Thank you, Susan. Then moving on to section 3, one of the things that I guess we felt really strongly as a group when we were discussing what we wanted out of this toolkit was that we really need to, the first thing is to check in. And there's different ways of checking in. Sometimes we've heard from parents that the check-in was a really tense phone call between parent and principal about the child not attending school, and tensions rose and phones were hung up and everybody was feeling angry, but people thought that that was the checking in. So we felt that we really wanted to, explore what checking in really looked like with the young person and with the parents. And reflecting, trying to really dig deep and see what the broader issues were leading to the behaviour in the first place. So Catherine is going to talk through just very quickly section 3, which is the checking in section, which is quite quick. And then Catherine is going to go on to section 4, which is when you're doing frontline work with the young person, and some really, really lovely tools and resources that you can use with the young person across a range of different issues. Over to you, Catherine.
Hi, thanks a million. So section 3 is checking in with the young person, reflecting and exploring the broader issues that are leading to avoiding behaviour. So I suppose anxiety-based school avoidance can develop as a result of a variety of challenges facing a young person. To successfully support a young person, it's crucial to develop an understanding of the various factors impacting their motivation to attend school. The worksheets listed in this section, and your examples of them now, are going to help you explore these ideas with the kids. And there's different types of worksheets and different ideas. So what works for one child mightn't work for the other. So there's a variety to ensure that we can engage the children across it. So you can just see the first one is you and your school, positives, working on solutions and identifying school triggers. So it's really helpful to have a variety of resources that we can use in worksheets. And I suppose looking at it from a positive side and using positive behaviour, like exploration of the root causes of the young person's anxiety has the potential to be upsetting for the young people. It can be painful and frightening. You may need to meet with this significant resistance. Sometimes the kids can be aggressive, sad, refusing and finding it hard to engage with you. It's important to meet the young person however they present, with compassion, with understanding and with patience. And we hope the resource in this pack allows people to meet them where they are and to support them through the school refusing and the school avoiding behaviours. So the next section is, this section also works with how to communicate with parents and looking at how parents communicate with the school. So we'll move on to section 4. Thanks, Sinead. So looking at section 4, section 4 is the practical ways to engage young people with issues that can lead to school avoiding behaviour. So before proceeding into section 4, it's really important that you have completed section 2, because having an understanding of anxiety is essential in understanding school avoidance. It is very much, the practice very much linked with the other sections and following through, and it really supports the young people. So in school refusing behaviour, you're looking at the push factors and the pull factors, influencing factors that push a child towards staying at home, and then influencing factors that pull a child away from attending school. So bullying behaviours with peer-teacher relationships, exam pressures, difficulties with learning, reduced anxiety around separation, avoidance of challenging interactions with peers or teachers, and avoidance of schoolwork. These are all things that will impact on school avoidance. We can move down to so relationship challenges that may lead to school avoidance behaviour include friendships, intimate relationships, LGBTI plus issues, and identity crisis that may lead to school avoidance. Relationships between the parent, carer, and the young person, school, parent, carer relationships, and online relationships all can impact on school avoiding behaviour. So family functioning issues that may lead to school avoidance behaviour include living in congregated settings, homelessness, refuge, direct provision centres, separation, divorce, bereavement, addiction issues in the home, mental health issues in the home, pregnancy during the school year, and school transition. And young people with additional needs may also face challenges that could lead to school avoidance. And these are also covered in the section. So all of the toolbox will allow you to worksheets and support young people through all of these issues and concerns, and they're all covered in the toolbox with worksheets to support the work through the sections. You can move on, Sinead. Yeah, perfect. So worksheet 4 is a star quality. It's just an example of one of the worksheets that you'd use. Think of someone you can trust and draw it into the frame and what qualities they have, and in the young person reflecting on those. You can see where the toolbox goes into detail into dealing with certain issues for the young people. So leaving a toxic relationship, they're giving practical points. Make yourself unavailable to your friends. practical points to work with the young people through: mending friendships after a fight, what to say, use I statements. So they're very practical resources to give the young people concrete tips and concrete strategies to support them through school avoiding behaviour. Thanks, Sinead. You can go to the next. So practical tips again for young people for fixing your relationship with your parents. So practical points, working with the kids, maybe that's what's impacting on school avoiding behaviour. There's practical tips all the way through the toolbox and the toolkit on practical tips for practitioners. So there's lovely little key links. You can see them there with the little, with our little light bulb moments to help us through the pack. So there's loads of those throughout the resource pack. And then how might parent addiction be affecting the young person's relationship with the school and their education. So there's loads of different sections. This is really a whistle top tour. Again, Sinead said this is 200-page resources. It's hard to give you a really good, I suppose, insight and detailed feeling into this. Is just really to give you a taster for what's in the work pack, and there's loads more resources and tons of things to support all of the young people through a variety of different reasons that are leading to school refusal and school avoiding behaviour. Okay, thanks, Sinead.
That's great. Thank you, Catherine. As Catherine said, section 4 is really, really detailed. It's huge. It goes through all those different issues that we spoke about, because we know that school avoiding behaviour is really, really complex, and there's a lot of reasons, and a lot of times it's because of issues that are happening outside of school that are presenting when they turn up to school. So we're very, realistic about that, and we're hoping that section 4 will really help with giving practitioners and the young people the language and the resources that they can engage in sometimes very complex and very personal emotive issues that is impacting on their ability to attend school. Now moving on to section 5, which is we're really excited about this section, because we do not have in the already existing resource packs that are out there sections that deal exclusively with parents. And I know from my own sister is a teacher, and I have heard a secondary school teacher, because this pack is designed for secondary schools, and I've heard more than one occasion parent-teacher meetings, her coming out with a big frustrated face saying, I just couldn't get through to mum, or I know that there's mental health issues in the home and that's why he's not coming, but I just really don't know. I'm a teacher. I'm not a qualified counsellor. How do I discuss, mum's parental mental health issues? I'm a geography teacher. So that's why we felt that this section was absolutely key. And that's why we're delighted to have the expertise of Jill Moses from Clare Care, who is going to come on and give us a very, very brief flavour of what you can see in section 5, which is practical ways to engage parents on issues that can lead to avoiding behaviour. And also Jill is going to run through section 6, which is on trauma. And it's a very, very brief section about how trauma can influence the learning brain and can also inhibit a young person's ability to engage in school and their education. So I'm just going to hand over to you now, Jill.
Thank you so much, Sinead. No pressure. So yes, Jill here, and I'm focusing on working with parents. This section contains resources for support practitioners and parents or caregivers. And there's information on most of the topics that you would have seen covered there in the young person section, and there's also a series of worksheets. And of course, some parents may be able to take the information and the worksheets and just work with them independently, but others might need your help, because as we've seen, and the pack is so extensive, school avoidance is complex. So some parents may, of course, need you to help them. So in developing this section, I had to say to myself, what works in the work with parents? And what has always worked for me is building a relationship first. In relation to school avoidance, then, I think there can be challenges, because it's like school avoidance is in the spotlight, but as we've seen through the section for young people, there can be other issues hiding in the shadows. And this can be the case for parents too. How a parent presents, it may seem aggressive or maybe disinterested. This behaviour may be the headlights blinding us to the complex stories and experiences that are hiding in the shadows. But I think it's worth investing in relationship building, especially with those parents, because is it fair to say that when we better understand, we're less likely to judge. When we feel understood, we're more likely to connect. And when we feel a connection and trust, maybe then we can find the courage to work with difficult things, such as school avoidance. Sinead, would you show the next slide, please? So here's an example of what I would consider to be one of the core worksheets. And I just say as well, when I originally conceived it, it was beautiful. It was a colourful spidergram, but I suppose we have to let things go for the practicalities of production and printing. So now it looks like this. It's still a wonderful worksheet, but it's not nearly as beautiful. So the aim of these kind of core worksheets, as I would call them, is that they allow a support practitioner to sort of explore the parent's experience. So the first one is me in school. So it's the parent's experience of the education system themselves. The next one then is about how the parent feels when they think about their child and school. And I think this exploration helps us understand the relationship that they have or perhaps don't have with the school. And then finally, you're exploring with the parent how the child thinks they would fill in this if they were talking about school. And that really gives us an insight into the parent-child relationship. And then there are other worksheets like that that can be used to open up conversations with parents about some of the challenges that might be impacting how they're managing life on a day-to-day basis. Would you be able to move on to the next slide, please, Sinead? There is another slide coming, and it sort of shows how the pack has a little bit like the section for young people. You had sort of the note to the parent or guardian. So I did a little note to you as a parent, and it's just a way of acknowledging that the parents may be facing a difficult struggle. It's allowing them to feel that, you know, that they're not judged in this situation. There's also a little box with practical tips for practitioners. This might have just some sort of a comment to flag that a parent might be struggling with this. It might also have links to resources that they could pursue. And again, that runs through each topic. And then the next slide, after that one, maybe, not that one, maybe the next one. Are you able to move forward a small bit?
Can you see this now, Jill? This is
I can see that one. And would you be able to do the next one? It should say supporting parents when bullying results in school avoidance. Perfect, thank you. So that then is, it sort of shows how each topic is kind of presented. So, well, it was actually a little bit before that, but there's always, so there's the little note to the parent, then we have signs of how the issue may impact the young person's relationship with school. So it sort of gives a parent some, you know, key signs to look out for, point them in the right direction. And then we explore, just in simple terms, what the parent can maybe do. And we do this with tune-in and communication and practical tips. So the tune-in, it often starts with a reminder to the parent to just press pause, notice how they feel first. And this links very much with the section earlier around anxiety being at the core. So we're kind of asking parents to tune into themselves and get their heads around responding rather than reacting maybe. And then it might cover some key parenting tips. Then again, there's the little box with communication, and this might have examples of phrases that parents could use in order to just broach a difficult topic with their young people, because often parents would say, look, I just don't know what to say, you know, just like Sinead said earlier about her sister. And then there's usually a practical tips box, which has maybe guidance on where to get support and links to other services. So I suppose that's just a little flavour of what's in the section for working with parents. And I'll just do a quick look now at section 6, which is around trauma. So, So this section outlines how adverse childhood experiences affect brain development and impact a child's capacity to be fully present and ready for learning in school. Would you be able to scoot on to the next one, please, Sinead? Thank you. So there's a good bit of background information on the development of this ACE pyramid. And there's a a nice page as well with examples of trauma under the categories of abuse, neglect, and household challenges. And I think just they're simple statements of things that could be happening. And I think they're a great pointer for people who are working with children to just help them consider that maybe, you know, the child is experiencing trauma, and it can put their school experience in context. Would you be able to switch on to the next one, please? Thank you. There's also, I mean, this just is really stark, isn't it? Here, there's a stark contrast between the brain that's in survival mode due to external trauma and the brain that's ready for learning. And if we just leave that slide up there for a moment, and you just take a minute to sort of look through the two lists and compare them, and try and imagine that, you know, this is a young person in a school setting, and what it might be like for them to prioritise school or learning over survival. It'd be really hard, and we get a sense of perhaps what is behind school refusal sometimes. So I suppose in conclusion to my bit, I just want to say that much of the information here really is offered as an invitation to practitioners to just pause for a moment, think about the lived experiences of young people and their families, and this idea that when we're blinded by the headlights, we cannot see what hides in the shadows. And school avoidance may be the presenting behaviour, and we hope that this resource can bring some light to issues that may be hiding in the shadows. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jill. And thank you to all our panelists for giving giving the resource, the credence that it's due. As I say, you've done a great justice. Just flash here that what we'll do is the resource today. And if anybody wants to find out more your SIPSI, then SIPSI website, and you can click into. You can find out more about
Sinead, your connection seems to be very poor there.
All schools and counties will be getting a hard copy. Hard is at the printers, and they'll be sent out to within the next 2 weeks. Will be probably delivered to schools. Don't worry, it's the poster somewhere in there.
Okay, thanks, Sinead. Your connection there is.
Sorry about that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hand over now to.
Okay, apologies everybody. Sinead's internet connection seems to be quite poor there, but just to summarize what Sinead was saying there, there'll be hard copies of the resource will be sent out to all schools, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, and also to all of the support agencies that are working with young people in Clare. They'll also get hard copies in the coming weeks. I know there'll probably be many queries wondering if there's something for primary schools as well. So this initial resource, which is a tremendous resource, has been published for post-primary schools. The intention of the Clare SIPSI is that a primary publication will be made available at a future stage. But look, it is absolutely tremendous to have come this far and to have something like this. We'll also have there'll also be online versions will be made available, and it should be posted on the Clare SIPSI webpage very, very shortly. So it will be possible to access the resource from there. So the next part of the presentation, while Sinead is getting back on there, is to welcome Richard Egan from NEPS. And Richard, you're very, very welcome. And thank you so much for joining us, Richard.
Thanks, Ray. And thanks, Sinead and the SIPSI group for inviting me along to launch this today. I feel a bit of a fraud launching this with all the hard work that has been done by the group. but I'm here to talk about school avoidance and how we might build resilience within our young people who are reluctant to attend school. And I think the document that we have here today is a very excellent resource for professionals working with young people who present with school avoidant behaviours. And from our perspective within NEPS, as a school-based service, we see that the enhancement of anything to do with well-being of all our students in our schools is paramount. It's really, really important, and particularly those at risk of developing school avoidant behaviours, which seems to be because of the pandemic and because of all the closures and all the other issues that have been stemming. And you've heard some of the many different factors that influencing school avoidance, but seems to be increasing. And that would be our experience going into schools. And I know from speaking to a lot of teachers and a lot of principals, that's their experience too. And I suppose trying to promote resilience and well-being and using interventions like this toolkit will hopefully begin to lessen the incidence of school avoidant behaviours. And I know that this toolkit is one of the many, many different, Sinead spoke about the many, many different types of documents out there promoting and working with children who are avoidant of school. So this is another resource that we can sort of put our hands on, and an excellent one at that, because it covers all the different bases. So when we talk about resilience and school avoidance, I suppose in psychology, we talk about resilience when we're looking at individuals' ability to cope with anxiety-inducing situations, stress and hardship. So their ability to bounce back. And many of you would have heard me talk about that before. And it determines how we, I suppose, manage external life events that are inducing stress and anxiety. And I suppose the difference between those who overcome challenging events and someone who doesn't is the resilience to these events. And a lot of different factors are impinging on young people today and how they are able to overcome different challenges. And I think the toolkit gives some of the supports necessary for those who might find the challenges overwhelming, in order they would begin to be able to become more resilient, to be able to do something about the challenging events that make their lives a bit better. And I suppose there are many different paths to resilience, and which will lead to better well-being and hopefully a reduction to school avoidant behaviours. And that's the real purpose of today's launch, I think, is to reduce the incidence of school avoidant behaviours amongst our young people and children. And I suppose, as I mentioned, the toolkit highlights a lot of different external and internal stress factors influencing school avoidance, and all the different practical suggestions of how to work with young people. So in this presentation, I'm going to focus on resilience building to support young people with school avoidant behaviours and how we can change that hopefully into the future. So when we talk about well-being in our school communities, what can we expect for all students, school staff, parents during and following these pandemic times? And I think we have to keep that in mind. This is a very strange time. And while this pack is going to be beyond the pandemic, I think the pandemic is influencing a lot of the factors that are increasing the factors that are leading to school avoidant behaviours. And some people will not have experienced any stress in the last couple of years or adversity. Some people have experienced significant stress and adversity, and some more people who are vulnerable have become more vulnerable. So the key message really is that all our feelings, thoughts, and behavior, they're all okay. The key message is to normalize, but not to ignore. And that's where the interventions come into place. And that's where the toolkit is, as an intervention, can support people to reduce those significant stress and anxiety provoking situations in their lives. So I wanted to just focus in on, you would have recognized these, we would have produced them in terms of well-being. And I think they're important going forward when we talk about there's 5 key principles or essential elements when we talk about well-being in our school communities. And I think they feed right nicely within the toolkit and what the toolkit is trying to do. A sense of safety, a belief that your needs and the needs of those you care about will be met now and into the future, a belief that you're protected from harm, that those around you will be safe. And why these are important: it's essential to reduce the impact of stress and anxiety, essential for learning and reconnect with adults and peers. The less stressed we are, the more we're able to think, plan, and engage and learn. And the next one is the sense of ability to calm yourself, be able to relax and stay composed or grounded rather than become numb, shut down, agitated, and overly excited. And I think from looking through the toolkit, that's enhanced in a lot of the interventions and practical suggestions. And you'll see it throughout the toolkit, all the different pieces that it does through that. And why this is important. Being able to relax your body and mind allows you to focus and concentrate what you need to do. The more regulated and calm we are, we're able to think, plan, and engage and learn. They're all important elements. It leads to higher order thinking. A sense of connectiveness, and I think that's really, really important for all young people. I think without this connectiveness, whether it be within their homes or school or the community, it's very, very difficult to stay resilient. So having relationships with others, individuals or groups who understand you and support you. And for me, young people, particularly teenagers, that's key. And where relationships break down, that's significant. I was struck by even what the presentation there earlier on when they talked about how you overcome fights and arguments amongst friends, which is really key going forward for young people and how to do that, because a lot of them don't know. So the restoration of school communities is central to recovery, providing a connection back into the key social group in their lives. Rebuilding connections and relationships with teachers and peers is critical. Okay, so these were all to develop a secure base for young people. And connection is more important nowadays with COVID. The next one is that whole sense of self-efficacy and community efficacy. And when we talk about self-efficacy, it's a belief that you can do what you need to do, deal with challenges and handle tough times. And that belief is very, very important for young people to develop. It's not there inherently, it has to develop over time. It's learned through mastery of different pieces that they do in their lives so that they become to believe that they can actually do it. And in community efficacy, it's the belief that the school community you belong to can do what it needs to do to thrive and take care of its members. So they're two interconnected pieces of efficacy. So why these are important in times of crisis, efficacy beliefs may be challenging. People may feel they have lost their competence to solve problems and handle ordinary day-to-day challenges. And within the toolkit, there are little practical suggestions of how you can go about improving your efficacy, but they're done through the practical strategies that they talk about within the toolkit. A key enabling factor to build self and community efficacy following a crisis is to restoration of school communities. And the last one, which is not to be negated, is hope. Expectations that things will work out, feeling that everything is going to be all right. That's a difficult concept for some people who are going through difficult situations, who are overly anxious, who are sitting outside in the car and can't get out of the car to come into school. And how they go about doing that is difficult. So that hope is to bring about hope for young people. And the toolkit focuses in on some aspects of that. And hope can include a belief that others will be there to help. And I suppose that's where us as adults, as teachers, as psychologists, as social workers, as family support workers, as youth workers, the whole range of different people out there, if we can get that belief out there that we're there to help too. Hope is critical for learning. Remember, the changes in media can all develop hope. So when we talk about these things, I decided there is a little small, I'd like to end with a small little coping mechanism that we sometimes recommend for young people and for schools. And I thought it might be useful to share it with you as another way of promoting coping within young people. And many of you might have heard of it. It's called the basic pH. So this, how do we cope in situations that are difficult and challenging and are creating anxiety? And this feeds into what is already done within the toolkit, but it's also a very quick way of doing something. That's who it was developed, and it's a simple, fast tool. And it's about describing how you manage life's challenges. So they suggest that people have 6 potential characteristics or dimensions that are core to an individual's coping style. Everyone has an innate ability to utilize each dimension as part of their approach towards coping. Most people tend to rely on preferred coping methods developed over time. Important that we know what our dominant channel is and should not rely on just one. So the first one is belief. So it's based on the basic pH. The person believes whatever he, she wishes for himself or herself or others will come true. Attempts to find meaning, values such as justice or religious faith are important, either optimistic or pessimistic. Belief around affect, their approach, their characteristic is emotional approach. Person's feelings are visible, clear and strong, direct or indirect expressions of emotion. Social, the person flourishes when they are with friends, likes to have social tasks and responsibilities, likes being part of a team or a system, wants to be around friends, family, or meaningful others. Imagination, attracted to drama, music, art, and imagery, and literature. The sense of humor is important, and empowered to use their own imagination. Cognition, person who gathers information, they're curious, they ask about details, they're good at organization, they're good at planning, they're task and time oriented, and knowledge is the main resource. Reality and logic and having a plan are important. And finally, physiological, the person is active, they like sports activities, tactile and kinesthetic things are important to them, and benefits from a chance to burn off energy. So that's a very brief overview of a simple coping technique called the basic pH. You can look up more about it, but it's important to know what your style are, how you can incorporate it into your everyday life to help with coping based on your styles. If it has been an extremely challenging day, what can you do? Not doing the same as someone else does not mean you're coping badly. Coping methods are deemed successful if you can sustain your normal routine. So the toolkit, just like that simple little technique there, is about providing young people with the strategies, the practical skills and goals to move on, to stay in school, to stop avoiding school, and give them the resilience and coping mechanisms in order to go to school. And that's quite important. So in summary, I just wanted to mention that the value of well-being in our schools. I know it's become almost a dirty word for some people, but well-being is really important. The importance of understanding how people are coping with the challenges in life, particularly when young people find it hard to come to school. And I think the toolkits provide professionals working with young people with an array of interventions that can alleviate the problems associated with reluctant school attendance and those who avoid school. So the school kit is one of the many supports available, enhancing the well-being of our schools. And I'm really happy, and I know I've really ran through things very quickly there, but I'm really happy to be able to launch this today and to look at it as another resource that we'll be using. So thank you so much. And thanks, Sinead.
Thank you, Richard. And I'm hoping that I'm not tempting fate by talking and my internet is going to cut me out again. So I'm going to keep it very brief. Thank you very much, Richard. That was a really inspiring presentation, and the fact that it focused so heavily on hope, because sometimes I know definitely from working within TUSLA and anybody who's doing frontline work, sometimes we see this revolving door of young people who we might have met their brothers or sisters who are avoiding school or who are not attending school. And sometimes we feel, I think I'm frozen there again. I hope people can hear me.
Maybe if you turn off your camera, Sinead, it might help.
It can be easy for us to fall into a hopeless situation. So I'm just proceeding on the grounds that people can hear me. It may help. I might do the old-fashioned turn off my camera thing and see what happens. But just want to say is that in the chat there, and I don't know whether it's going to upload for me because it's uploaded there in the chat for people as a PDF. So if people want to, yes, it says that it has successfully uploaded. Amazing, my internet has managed to do that much for me today. Of the resource in the chat for people if they want to download it to their desktops there. But as I say, it will be emailed to people as well, and hard copies will be going out as well. I just want to thank everybody who gave up their hour. We did say we were going to keep it into the strictest of hour, and we've managed to do that. I want to give a special thank you to Ray McInerney and the Clare Education Centre for facilitating this webinar for us today, and for setting it up and for helping us with the practice run. I know it's a Tuesday midday working day for people, so all our panelists and all our guest speakers, especially Dr. Richard Egan from NEPS, who's us, how important this topic is to us, and how, you know, we really want to have the tools. And it was just so heartening to hear one of my CAMS colleagues saying that she started using it already with a parent, and she's already negotiated with the local school that the school is going to do section 4, she's going to do section 5, and they're going to be talking to the youth worker who's going to do another part of section 4, and they're all using the one resource. And that's the win, because it is literally, nobody is Googling, nobody's pulling off stuff off the internet, running around multiple agencies trying to help the one family. When it comes to school avoiding behavior, this is your one resource. And we want agencies to start using it in that integrated way. And that means we're putting the real team around the child. And that's really what this resource was aimed to do. So just to finish up, I would just again like to thank you to everybody for logging in today for this hour. It's been really, and in the middle of looming lockdowns, that, you know, we have this beautiful resource for our students in County Clare and our dedicated practitioners in County Clare. So thank you, everybody. We'll be in touch via the email, and your hard copies will be coming to your services within the next 2 weeks.
Today, can I just say that if we were in front of you, we'd give you a large round of applause for you and all of the committee involved in the production of the toolkit. So I think you just take it that there's a big round of applause headed your way this second.
That's great, lovely. Thank you, Richard. So we would just like to say thank you again to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that you found this presentation useful, and we will be sending out the presentation slides in the email as well, because some people have been asking for the slides, because the presentations were really insightful as well. So they will be going out with your PDF copy as well. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Sinead, and thanks to everybody for logging on, particularly in the middle of your working day. It's extraordinary to think actually that we had over 60 people that logged on to attend today's session, and if nothing else, it raises fantastic awareness of a really important issue and a really important response that has been created here. So thanks, everybody. We'll follow up by email with a copy of the toolkit and of the slides. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.